Most people don't know their housing rights until they're already in trouble. In today's episode, I'm talking with Raisa Alicea, staff attorney with LUCHA. We discuss tenant and landlord rights, plus buyer and homeowner resources that can help you stay protected. This is information everyone should have before they need it. Take a listen. Hello, my friends. We have Raisa Alicea, the Law Project staff attorney with LUCHA here today. Thank you, Raisa, for coming today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We have a lot of important legal topics to cover today. So let's get to it. Can you tell us about LUCHA, the organization, and then talk about your role in that organization?
Yes. So LUCHA is based out of the Humboldt Park neighborhood in Chicago. For the last 40 years or so, we are a affordable housing developer, and we also provide housing counseling services. My role there is as a staff attorney. So in order to help our first-time home buyers with workshops, with legal assistance, kind of guide them through the whole process in a way. So once, they're really interested in the process of buying a home, we can also give them that assistance of, reviewing the contracts, making sure that everything that they're looking for is in there, and that the whole closing process, which is the most stressful, right? That's like the business end of the transaction.
Absolutely.
To make sure that it goes, as smoothly as possible. And I've been doing that since about 2018. So really, I think LUCHA's main thing, it's all about housing, affordable housing, both in the rental space. So that's why we have developing of affordable housing in this community, but also for those who want to transition into homeownership, kind of how to guide them through that process.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And I know that you cover also rentals, things that it's specific to housing, of course. Yeah. And on the website, lucha.org, there's a page about the Community Law Project. And there's a section that talks about housing as a human right. And I'd love for you to tell me, what does that look like in real life for families in Chicago?
I think housing as a human right is probably one of the biggest issues that the city of Chicago, even the state of Illinois, and I think you might go through the whole country, is facing right now, which is the lack of affordable options in housing, both in renting and when trying to buy a home. And, how can you can be employed, have a full-time job, working, 40 hours a week, and still find yourself in a situation where you cannot find decent housing that is affordable. We're always told, right, if you have a job, you put in the work, 40 hours a week, working full time, you'll get, you'll be able to find all of these opportunities. But the first roadblock is housing. And that's why for us, we're committed to housing as a human right, meaning that everybody should have the right to have a home, to have affordable housing. And we focus on that first through development. So that's why we have multiple affordable housing units for rent throughout the city. Although our focus right now is to the building in the Humboldt Park and Hermosa neighborhood, so more on the northwest side. But just continuous development of affordable housing. And then the other component, which is those that might want to buy a home, then how can we make that process as easy and as affordable as possible? And that starts with housing counseling, so that people can understand their rights, people can understand how the home buying process goes, what each lender is offering, what grants are out there, different programs that can assist people in their, in the buying of a home. So we see it doesn't matter whether you're looking to rent or whether you're looking to buy, is what can we do as an organization to make it more affordable, to make it easier, to make it something that people can actually realistically aspire to.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the most common issues you're seeing right now when it comes to renters in Chicago?
I think the biggest issue that I'm seeing right now is people who have been renting for a long time, And then suddenly they're told, you got to go. Probably because, the goal is for the rent to go up, right?
Right.
So rents keep going up. So people are told either they have to leave or that, hey, starting on, next month or whatever, your rent is going to go up to an amount that is sort of not affordable anymore. In Illinois, we don't have rent restrictions, right? There's no rent control law. It's not legal to do that. So a landlord does have the right to, charge whatever rent they see fit and whatever the market is willing, to bear. But it does have a situation where you could have somebody who has been living in a home for 5-10 years. That is their home. They're raising children there. They have, a job. They have, a community. And now suddenly they're told, well, you got to go. And sometimes we have situations where landlords may not know that sort of post-COVID, people are entitled to like larger notices period. Like it used to be 30 days or when your lease is up. But now, particularly, there is a requirement to give people longer notice time, depending if they've lived there long.
Yes.
And a lot of times that's not happening. So I'm seeing a lot of people like, oh, I just got a notice and I got to leave in like 30 days. Where can I find, that's not enough time. But it's like, how long have you lived there? 5 years. I'm like, no, you're no longer entitled to 30 days. Now, we're looking at a longer notice period. And that's an issue. The other issue that I'm seeing a lot is, unfortunately, just a lot of apartments that are not being repaired, that are not like
that they're not being well maintained.
Yeah, that's perfect. That they're not being well maintained. And as tenants, you're paying a rent. You do have rights for you want to live in a space that the heat is on during the winter, where you don't have infestation, things like that. And landlords that are not really willing to cooperate in those situations where tenants make those complaints. And then how to guide tenants through that process, because a lot of tenants, you'll find that they'll think like, oh, well, I'm just going to stop paying the rent. I'm like, no, there is a way to handling this, but we're not doing it that way. You got to give proper notice. And then, if that notice is not followed, then maybe you can finance that repair yourself, but then keep the receipt. And then you can subtract that amount from the rent, a little bit. We'll go into more details. People are needed, but that's a way of doing things properly, so that you don't find yourself in a situation that because you had a legitimate complaint, maybe you stop paying the rent and now you're facing an eviction. Right. Where if you knew how to navigate that process, we could avoid that eviction.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of evictions, a lot of people hear the word eviction or eviction court and they panic. Yeah. With good reason. So what should someone expect if they're in that situation where they get, some sort of notice or the landlord says something about eviction to them?
What I would always remind people is the eviction is a legal process. So if you're having, if your landlord is threatening you with eviction, that is a threat, right? But the landlord is not allowed to just, change the locks or take your stuff out and put it in the street. That's not what eviction is. Eviction is a landlord going to court, filing an eviction case, following the correct process of service, right? They have to giving you proper notice as mandated by the court. It's not just enough to necessarily give you a piece of paper or something. There is a process. And then you'll go to court and you'll be able to argue your case. I always tell people, so if it's very important to see if you're talking about eviction, have you actually have a case filed against you, or is this just talk? And if an eviction case has been filed, then we got to ask, okay, was the proper procedure pre-eviction filing followed? So if it's an eviction because they're alleging that we're behind in rent, did they give you the 5-day notice? Was it proper? Were you served? All of these, right? It's not just enough. A landlord cannot just go to court right away. They have to give you a notice, and the type of notice will, depends on what the basis of that eviction is. But in a case of alleging rent, it have to be a 5-day notice, and then filing a proper case in court. I think the biggest thing is try to seek legal assistance. in those cases, but go to court. Even if you do not have an attorney right now, if you have a court date coming up, go to court. Because if you don't go to court, what is very likely to happen is that, the default may be entered against you because you did not appear. But if you go, you can say, hey, I'm here. I need more time, maybe to get an attorney, or maybe sort of try to work something out with the landlord. So just go to court, and then, we can discuss what can we do to assist with that process and what the best possible outcome is.
And so is that what eviction diversion means, where they're going to come together and avoid the eviction?
Yes, because ideally, if we can reach an agreement where we can avoid the eviction process, through the end, I think it can benefit both parties. At the end of the day, it's a legal process. The longer it goes, that means the more that you have to pay an attorney and the landlord as well, right? And I'm a lawyer, but I'm not here to advocate about paying more, to the attorneys. Right. That's not the end goal, right? So a diversion we can sort of try to work something out. Mm-hmm. For example, in cases of like unpaid rent, what are the rental assistance programs out there? Mm-hmm. Let's look into that. Maybe that is something that we can work out, where maybe you fell behind because of a particular situation, but you feel like you're in a position where you can continue to pay rent. It's just difficult to continue and make up what was not paid. So maybe we can look at what rental assistance programs are out there. Maybe that's a solution. Mm-hmm. And that is something that has to be worked together with the landlord. If you're looking into some of the existing rental assistance programs that are out there, it requires that your landlord be sort of in lockstep with you, working with you to access that. So a lot of them require that a 5-day notice be given. So sometimes you have a landlord has to give you that 5-day notice to be able to access some of these rental assistance programs, to kind of make it clear that there is a claim of unpaid rent. Yeah. So again, but that's something we can look at, or if it's some other non-rent issue, then maybe we can work what's going on. What is the problem? Right. Then we can try to work something out. And a lot of times if we can reach that separate agreement, then we can put that in writing or have it, be formal, and we can halt the eviction process. It protects both parties for increased fees in court costs. It protects the landlord from nobody wants to have an eviction on your record as a tenant, because that will make it much more difficult for you to be able to find a new home. Yeah. So it kind of just allows us to find a workable solution. Yeah,
yeah. Well, and from my experience with landlords, because I work, I do help renters find apartments, but I also help landlords find tenants. Yeah. And from my experience, I know it's really challenging for landlords as well in Chicago, because it seems that so many of the laws are swayed towards protecting the tenant versus the landlord. At least in the eyes of the landlord, that's what they see. So this is why it's so important for there to be education. The education to the landlord, so they know what they can and cannot do, and the tenant, so they know what they can or cannot do. Because many times I find that, Latinos in general, we love being around our family. And if a family member needs help, needs a place to stay, they say, well, you could stay with me. But they forget that they're renting and they need to notify the landlord. So there's always these little nuances in these situations that with communication, it can, kind of calm things down so that the landlord doesn't get upset and file the eviction. It's mostly communication.
Yes. And I would also say there are also landlord training programs out there that exist. Same thing. Yeah. It's usually a housing counseling agency. Same thing that would provide housing counseling. They can provide landlord training. Yes. And anybody who's already a landlord, but also maybe just interested in becoming a landlord, maybe purchasing like a 2-flat or something like that, highly, highly, highly recommend taking a landlord training class. Because look, I know landlords will think that the laws benefit tenants and tenants will think that the laws benefit landlords.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is just to see it as I just need to understand what are both my rights
Yes.
and my responsibilities. And it kind of goes hand in hand, right?
Yep.
And it goes for both. For the landlord has a set of rights and responsibilities, and the tenant has a set of rights and responsibilities. If I know those, then I'm just going to be a lot more proactive and a lot more like just educated about what to do and what not to do. And you avoid a lot of the little like issues that kind of like end up snowballing, and then we got a big problem. And if we had kind of nipped that in the bud 2 months ago, we would probably not be sort of facing a potential eviction.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know Lucha does so much work in housing in Humboldt Park and around the communities near Humboldt Park. So I really do appreciate all the staff and you know, just there's so much that needs to be done and so much help that is needed. And these nonprofits like Lucha, Association House, Spanish Coalition, Northwest Center, all these organizations are really, really there. And most of these services are free to, you know, guide the community.
Yes. I think I would say the only fee for service that we had is a legal representation, but and for closing on real estate, but everything else, the housing counseling, the workshops, all of that is free, right? And you can give a call, and whatever we can assist, like in filling out applications or just all of the housing counseling, all of that is free. And a lot of these other not-for-profits, housing counseling agencies that you mentioned, same thing. Those fees, those services are, for the most part, except like a select fee, which they'll tell you right away, everything else is free. So I would just always recommend, if you're facing a situation, whether an eviction or for foreclosure, and you kind of don't know what to do, a lot of times you can just call, and even if they may not be able to directly like represent you, they can still give you guidance or a referral. Like, you know, I cannot handle this, but I know the housing agency or whatever other agency, not-for-profit, that actually handled this.
Yes.
And we'll just connect you with them.
Yes, absolutely. So Lucha also helps with, we mentioned, the residential closings. And so how does that process differ from a traditional real estate experience? Is it very similar, or are there any differences?
Well, in this case, the way we see it is anybody who's interested in buying a home should always take one of these workshops, the first-time homebuyer workshops. They'll guide you through the process. But the really good thing is when you're done with your workshop and your one-on-one, you'll get a very nice certificate that will confirm that you've done that training, and that will open the doors for a lot of like down payment assistance grants that are out there that require for you to have the certificate. And then it also helps you connect, if you're not there, with realtors, with lenders that can help you get started with the process of looking for a home. In a lot of ways, it is sort of follows the normal home buying process. Like you work with your realtor if you need to look for a home, you connect you with a lender. But what it does is just gives you more information. So, for example, when you're looking for a lender, it's like, okay, not every lender is the same. They don't all have the same programs, grants, or maybe even the interest rates. So how can we help? We're not going to tell you who to go with. That is ultimately always the buyer's decision. But what we can do is like, oh, we are aware of these programs these different lenders have. We can connect you with them. And then once you found the home, you're working with your realtor, you found the home, and you have your lender and your pre-approval, and you're under contract. I mean, you're very familiar with this process. That is when the attorney comes in and we sort of finalize, review the contract, help you with your inspections, in terms of requesting whatever repairs or credits you want. And just my job is always, what I say, my biggest thing is I keep track of all of the deadlines and making sure that the transaction is sort of moving smoothly. Or if we need more time, let's make sure we're asking for that time so that we are protecting your investment, protecting the money that you've already kind of put in the process.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The home buyer workshops is the most important part, I believe, of the home buying process.
Yes.
And when I receive calls, whether they're online leads or referrals, I always give them a list of the nonprofits that I work with, but I know they're all over the city, they're in the suburbs, and they offer these workshops for free, and they bring in the realtor, the attorney, the lender, the inspector in some cases. They sometimes even bring like utility company representatives.
Or insurance.
The
homeowner
insurance, yeah. And you know, the home buying process moves so fast once you're in it. So to just sit for 6 to 8 hours, it could be 2 different days, and just absorb the process before you get into it is such a big deal for buyers.
Yes, because once you're in it, you're going to find that there's going to be a lot asked of you in terms of documents you need to turn in terms of questions that you have to ask, decisions that you have to make, that, you know, your team can help guide you, but we cannot make those decisions for you. And what I think the workshop is, it prepares you for that. It gives you an idea of, these are, you know, every case is a little different, but these are some of the standard documents they're going to ask of you. So let's get those ready. These are some of the questions that may come up, and that, you know, you should kind of be prepared for that. Things to look out to when you, for example, when you get to the portion of the inspector in the workshop, they'll show you, like, we go with you how the inspection works. You can see, you know, it's easy to fall in love with a home when you first see it, and then the inspector is there to kind of show you all the fun and not so fun stuff. But it's important to know, and I think just the more that you have prepared yourself, the better, because everything works on a deadline once you're in the process.
Absolutely.
So as much as sometimes we would like to say, let me take a couple of days to think about this, the reality is we may not be able to take a couple of days to think about this. So, but it's a big decision. Sometimes it's the biggest financial decision, investment we will ever make. So prepare yourself beforehand. So once the moment comes, you're like, oh, I expected this. I know this was, so I got my tax returns. I got my bank statements. I got this, I got that. And I can and the process will move so much.
Yeah. It won't feel so overwhelming.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the other important part of that is the financing, right? Because you want to know how much money you need to start. You need money before you even get to the closing. Plus, your lender's going to explain at the workshop what type of products they offer in terms of loans. And then the other great thing that I love about the workshops, which I try to add when I give my presentation part in the real estate portion, is I try to add a few little stories to the presentation, because I feel like stories really stick with the audience and give them some things to think about, or, you know, not necessarily worry about, but, you know, important things to think about before they start.
Yes. And you'll find that it can also help kind of guide, or you'll have a situation, but if you rely or you work with your team or you've gone to these workshops, they would have already have similar experiences, or by another buyer that had a similar situation, or a lender, and that can help guide you. But you can, and it's also a good gauge of like the experience that like a realtor has, where they can tell you, well, all of these stories of things that have happened, and you can sort of like get an understanding that these people do the job day in and day out. So they have seen a lot.
Yeah.
And when something comes up, they're like, can rely on some of those past experiences to help guide you.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So what kind of fair housing issues are still happening today that people might not even realize are illegal?
I would say one of the biggest ones that I see is what's called source of income. And that can sound like, oh, what is that? But it's the idea that, you know, if I make a certain amount, this is my income, and that is sufficient to qualify, the source of that money shouldn't be the deterrent of like me being able to close on this home. The bank will still have their process, right? If I'm self-employed versus W-2, the process might look different because they'll need to verify that income in a different way. So we're not saying that the bank is just not going to verify. They will. But it should not be a situation outright. And I work a lot with the Choose to Own program, which is the program that allows people who have like CHA vouchers, that they use it for rent, to be able to use that same voucher for home buying process. So we're essentially using the voucher instead of paying a portion of the rent, we'll pay a portion of the mortgage. And that is very difficult sometimes. Sometimes you'll find a situation where these buyers, if they disclose even inadvertently that they're CHA, it's like they're not interested anymore of accepting that offer, even though the lending process in itself is not very different because it's not the CHA. Like they don't add another layer of getting your loan approved. They're not in the mortgage business. You have the voucher; it's already approved. You're going through the same process, same as any other buyer with the regular bank or mortgage broker. All of that is the same. But as soon as that comes up, it becomes a big issue, and that is a fair housing violation, a very clear one as well.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Yeah, definitely. And so my other question is, how can community members educate themselves or get help before a situation becomes a crisis? And I'm talking in terms of scenarios with rentals, like what are the resources? Aside from LUCHA, of course, what are the resources maybe in Chicago where people can reach out to, try to resolve a problem or get educated before, like I said, an eviction or anything like that?
So all housing counseling agencies are certified by HUD, right? So so all of that is available online. So if you mentioned Lucha, we're in this particular neighborhood, right? Humboldt Park, Hermosa. But there are other housing counseling agencies throughout the city and throughout the state and throughout the nation. So one of the first things you can do is you can look up online on the HUD website, housing counseling agencies, and find the one that's closest to you or one that maybe you've already heard of, but want to get their all of their information and reach out. But just make sure that it's a HUD certified housing counseling agency and reach out. See, you can even look online, like our Lucha website, see what services they offer. If it's housing related, a lot of times they will be able to assist you. But if they cannot directly, then they can connect you with whoever else, what other group out there, might be able to help you. So, for example, if it's like facing an eviction, right, you can call a housing counseling agency. Maybe they don't have like an eviction defense in-house, but they know who does.
Okay.
They'll know in the city what not-for-profits do eviction protection or eviction defense. And they'll be like, oh, I cannot assist you. This is not what I do, but I know who does that. So I can give you all that information and they'll be able to connect you. It's a small community, but it's a very engaged community, like around housing, particularly in the city of Chicago. So we all kind of know each other.
Good.
And if I cannot do it, I can connect you with whoever does that particular service in a way that's like most affordable. Same thing. Sometimes we have people who need housing and maybe our wait lists are not open and we don't, but we know who else does.
Okay.
We know the other affordable housing developers that does have like an open wait list, and we're like, okay, we don't, but are you okay moving in this this particular neighborhood? If you are, here's the information. Apply over there. That wait list is open. So that kind of community, that kind of connection is just finding those agencies, and I think that's like the first of like a building block, and then you can start building your own little network.
Good. So we had talked before the podcast that Lucha is now connected to Association House. So can you tell me about how that works?
So Association House of Chicago, it's an organization that they've been working in the city for over 100 years. And we're now, Lucha, under the umbrella of Association House because they provide a host of like other services that like they have, for example, a lot of mental health services, a lot of career training. Like there's like a culinary school program.
Yeah.
It's something that we offer. There's also like a lot of financial training as well, both like as a personal education, but a lot of times also for people who maybe want to interested in becoming like a more like work at a bank, like a teller, or even and you can kind of go from there. That is also something. So a lot of career building programs. We also have a high school. It's a part of the CPS system. So I think the focus is what we were finding in Lucha, what I was mentioning to you before we started recording, is we could provide the housing, but there are a lot of causes for housing instability. And the goal is not just to provide affordable housing, but have it be sustainable. Right. So I think Association House does a great job of like all of the other aspects that can assist in making that housing not just affordable, but then sustainable. Okay. So like career work, mental health, all of that. I mean, there's a bunch of other programs. So I always recommend people go Association House website and you'll see all of the services that we provide. And we're also in the Humboldt Park neighborhood, but throughout the city. And just a matter of like, again, assisting people in the community.
Okay, wonderful. So the website is lucha.org. Yeah. For the Lucha section of their programs. They're in Humboldt Park on Kedzie. I forgot the address, but it's over by...
Yeah, it's 1116 North Kedzie Avenue. So right literally in front of Humboldt Park, Kedzie and Division. It's a big building, can't miss it.
Yes. Okay. And is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you wanted to mention before we wrap up the show?
I think for me, the biggest thing is ask for assistance. I sometimes hear so many people like, oh, this happened to me. And I didn't know of the resources that are out there. Yeah. There's so many people that I've seen that are like, have been deep in the eviction process, that had no idea about rental assistance programs, no idea that existed. Or housing counseling. So many people that just have no idea about all of that. Or if you're facing like a foreclosure, we haven't really talked about that, but the same thing. If you're facing a foreclosure, it's almost like you'll have the moment of like brief panic, scare, and that's fine. We're all human, but let's let that moment pass, and then let's lock in. And what can we do? And what can I call? And a lot of times, people don't know, but let's look at a refinance. Let's look at a loan modification. There's cash for keys. There's so many options out there before we end up in like a foreclosure, like, all the way through. And just, I feel like we try to do as much education as possible, but sometimes it's like, what more can we do to let people know that there's a lot of other options out there? And we can educate yourself to like get those resources because they are available.
Yeah, it's basically connecting with people in the community and then learning what's available, what the resources are. It opens your eyes to what really is going on in the community. People don't realize how much help there is.
Yes.
And so when I get calls, I mean, I've gotten calls from people that are distressed, right? They're falling behind on their mortgage. And before I tell them you need to sell, I say, well, what is the situation? Do you want to talk to a housing counselor for, before, you get knee deep behind in your mortgage? So many resources are out there. Yeah. It really is just about connecting with them. So I know that the nonprofits in Chicago and in the suburbs here have done an amazing job, especially during COVID. There were so many bad situations, and everyone was overworked.
Yes.
Everybody was overworked, but there was a mission here, right, to keep people in their homes.
Yes, because a lot with the housing counseling agencies, we talk a lot about the pre-purchase stuff, the first-time home buyer workshops, and that's all very important. Yeah. But they also do a lot of post-purchase work, not just in like foreclosure prevention, but they also have like a lot of programs about like energy efficiency, and they can guide you because those are programs that are out there that can help you like reduce your your electricity or your gas bill. And that is like, great, and can make then the home owning process more affordable. And they can and do a lot like weatherization. There's a lot of other programs, post-purchase programs. So even once you've closed on the home, don't just assume, okay, I'm done. I don't need to keep like engaging. No, because there are also like post-purchase resources out there for all of the other programs that are available once you're a homeowner.
Yeah, and then the city and the county and the state will sometimes roll out grants to help homeowners and tenants. So if you don't know about them, then ask the nonprofits, because they are the ones in the know. They're the ones that know what's going on and what's available.
Yeah. Or even like, I know we're seeing that a lot lately. You got your property tax bill.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God. But, have you looked at what property taxable exemptions are out there that you may qualify for? And maybe you haven't applied for them because it's not something you can do at the closing. You got to wait a little bit. And sometimes we forget. And that property tax bill could potentially be a lot lower because you might qualify for these property tax exemptions. And sometimes people don't know. So that is also another important thing to keep in mind, and resources out there that can help you fill out those applications.
They do those events where homeowners come and then they help them fill out the documents.
We can assess what property tax exemption you qualify for.
Yeah.
Senior, disability, veteran, or sometimes it's just, I'm a homeowner and I live in it. There's an exemption for that. Most people will qualify for that one. And to help you fill out the paperwork or the application, what other additional supporting documents you need, and we can send it out, and you'll notice a big, relief in your property tax bill. And that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is all so important. All of it. Very, very important. I want to ask you a question that's not part of this topic. What's your favorite restaurant in Chicago and why? It could be a cafe, a diner, whatever you want.
I would say lately, it's in our community. I live in Belmont Cragen. Oh. And we go to a little restaurant called Hangry's.
Oh, yeah.
It's on
Fullerton.
Love it. I have a mentioning I was a 5 and 8 year old. So it's like, it's great for everybody. Yeah. And that's like lately been just like our like little family spot. Aww. We can go and have something nice to eat for everybody. And it's right in our community. So that's a great spot.
It is. It is. Yeah. I love that place. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, so again, how can people reach you directly?
Feel free. You can send me an email. That's RALICEA at LUCHA, LUCHA.org. I would say that's probably the easiest way to reach me if I'm out of the office. But you can send me an email. And I don't remember our main line.
Yeah, that's okay. But the website's lucha.org.
Yeah, and that's a good point. On there. Because through lucha.org, we have like an area where you can just actually even connect and send a message, and it'll actually go to the all staff. Oh. So that we can actually, like, if you're not sure, do I reach to the attorney? Do I reach to the housing counselor? Or maybe I'm actually more interested in like one of our apartments. You send it there, and then whoever that actually is, like their department, they'll pick it up, and then they'll connect you with the right person.
Okay, so lucha.org is the easiest way to connect with anyone there, and also find out about the home buyer workshops, pre-foreclosure, the housing programs, all of that is in there.
And the application, if anybody's interested in applying to for one of our affordable housing developments that are existing or that may be coming soon, all the applications are always on the website, and it'll tell you like how to fill it out and where to send it to, so we can add you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure having you here. I look forward to seeing you at the workshops, on the field, hopefully at a closing.
Yes, hopefully soon.
Thank you again, Raisa.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for listening today. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe so you can keep up with my latest episodes. You can find me on all social media platforms at Dalia the Realtor. To reach me directly, call me at 773-879-4855. I'll see you on the next episode. Make it a great day.